Endings are a normal part of a life well lived. Some things are supposed to die. But most men were never taught that. We were raised on Vince Lombardi quotes like, "Winners never quit, and quitters never win," or "The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will." And that mindset might have gotten you far. Maybe a career, stability, a reputation for getting things done. But eventually it traps you, because not everything that lasts deserves to. And some things we keep doing prevent us from doing what matters. Now you're getting older and something feels off. Maybe it's the work that once energized you, but now feels like a grind. Maybe it's the relationship that's become more obligation than connection. Maybe it's the path you're on that no longer leads you to where you want to go. And when you think about changing direction, that old programming kicks in. Winners don't quit. If I walk away from what I've built, I'm admitting failure. Real men stick it out. But here's what that mindset doesn't account for. Sometimes the most successful thing you can do is to end what's not working. Sometimes quitting isn't giving up. It's clearing ground for something better. And I think achievement-oriented men in particular are often blind to the fact that endings are supposed to be a part of life. Whether you played it safe your entire life or took enormous risks, whether you followed the conventional path or blazed your own trail, you arrive at the same crossroads in midlife, recognizing that some things need to end for better things to begin. And the men who navigate this successfully aren't the ones who held on to everything they built. They're the ones who learned when to let go. And the problem with winners never quit is that it assumes every race is worth finishing. But life isn't one long race with a single finish line. It's a series of different races, and the skill isn't just knowing how to keep going, it's knowing when to stop running in the wrong direction. And think about the most successful men you know. However you want to define success, it doesn't really matter. Not the ones who just climbed a ladder, but the ones who made sure it was the right ladder for who they are. They all have one thing in common. They mastered the art of strategic endings to build lives that actually fulfilled them. The entrepreneur who left the corporate job that was killing his soul, the executive who stepped down from a prestigious position to start something meaningful, the man who ended the marriage that was already over so both people could find happiness elsewhere. None of these men failed. They succeeded by having the courage to stop investing in what wasn't working and to start rebuilding with intention. But we've been conditioned to see any ending as defeat. We confuse persistence with progress. We think that sticking with something, anything, is automatically virtuous, regardless of whether it's taking us where we actually want to go. This conditioning runs deep. From childhood, we're taught that quitting makes you a loser. So starting something new means admitting you were wrong about the old thing. Changing direction means you didn't have what it takes to stay the course. But that's really the thinking of a 20-year-old with unlimited time and limited life experience. At 50, you have different resources and different constraints. You have wisdom that your younger self didn't possess. You understand yourself in ways that weren't possible when you were building your identity around external expectations. Most importantly, you have something your younger self didn't have, the awareness that time is finite. Every year you spend doing the wrong thing is a year you don't get back for the right one. Here's what successful men understand that others don't. There's a massive difference between quitting and strategic ending. Quitting is giving up when things get difficult. Strategic ending is recognizing when continued effort won't produce the results you actually want. Quitting says, this is too hard. Strategic ending says, this isn't taking me where I need to go. Quitting is emotional. Strategic ending is analytical. Quitting happens in moments of frustration. Strategic ending happens after careful evaluation. And we have to keep in mind there's a difference between short-term pain to create something that matters and long-term suffering from sticking with something that isn't aligned with your soul. And the question isn't whether you have the grit to stick with something that's not working. The question is whether you have the wisdom to recognize when something isn't working and the courage to do something about it. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The thing you're afraid to end might already be over. That career track that's going nowhere, it ended when you stopped growing into the role 3 years ago. That marriage that feels more like a business arrangement, it ended when you stopped being emotionally intimate. That dream you keep talking about but never pursue, it's dying a slow death from neglect. Your refusal to acknowledge these endings doesn't keep them alive. It just keeps you trapped in the ruins while preventing you from building something that could actually fulfill you. And many men face these crossroads alone, without adequate support or frameworks for making these decisions. The winners never quit programming becomes especially destructive when you're isolated and second-guessing every instinct to change course. But recognizing when something needs to end isn't a character flaw, it's a life skill that becomes essential for anyone serious about living intentionally. Meanwhile, you're missing opportunities that could actually fulfill you because you're too busy maintaining what's already dead. You can't say yes to what's right for you while you're still saying yes to what's wrong for you. If you're getting value from this video so far, please support the channel by liking it. Thank you. The men who thrive in their second half of life, as I like to call it, are the ones who learn to end things intentionally rather than letting them end by neglect or deterioration. They understand that conscious endings create space for conscious beginnings, for rebuilding with clarity and intention rather than just maintaining what they inherited. But this requires a fundamental shift in how you think about success. Success isn't just what you can build or achieve. It's about what you can recognize isn't worth building or achieving. It's not just about persistence. It's about intelligent persistence toward goals that actually matter. The most fulfilled men I know aren't the ones who never change direction. They're the ones who changed direction when they recognized they were heading somewhere they didn't want to go. They're the ones who had the humility to admit when they were wrong and the confidence to start rebuilding something better. They ended careers that weren't fulfilling them to start work that excited them. They ended relationships that had become obligations to find real connections that energized them. They ended versions of themselves that no longer fit to become who they actually wanted to be. And this doesn't mean throwing everything away. It means being honest about what's working and what isn't. It means having the courage to disappoint the version of yourself that started something in order to honor the version of yourself you become. If you're not sure what needs to end, here's a simple way to start seeing clearly. Most things that no longer serve you fall into one of three categories. Category 1, the stuff that got you this far but can't take you further. This is about the evolution of your identity, a career path you chose in your 20s that no longer fits who you are. It built your life but now feels like a trap, not a calling. The relentless networking and relationship building that launched your career but now feels superficial and exhausting when you crave deeper, more meaningful connections. The financial discipline and frugality that built your wealth but now prevent you from enjoying the fruits of your labor or taking calculated risks that could enhance your life. Category 2, the stuff you've outgrown but still feel guilty about quitting. This is about guilt and misplaced loyalty. So the weekly poker game with college friends where you no longer enjoy the conversation or the company, but you keep showing up out of loyalty. The professional association you joined for career advancement that now feels like an expensive obligation with no meaningful benefit. The volunteer position you took on when your kids were young that no longer aligns with your current priorities, but makes you feel selfish for wanting to step down. Category 3, the stuff that's already over, but you're still pretending it's not. And we've all done this. This is about denial and inertia. The business partnership where trust died 2 years ago, but you keep going through the motions of collaboration. The marriage that became a logistics arrangement about managing kids and household responsibilities with no intimacy or genuine connection remaining. The promotion you've been working toward for 5 years while your boss has made it clear through actions, if not words, that it's never going to happen. Each category requires a different kind of courage. The first requires the courage to evolve past who you used to be. The second requires the courage to disappoint people who benefited from the old version of you. And the third requires the courage to admit that something you invested heavily in is over. But here's what happens when you master strategic endings. You stop feeling stuck. You stop feeling like you're running in place. You stop maintaining someone else's definition of your life and start building your own. The energy you were wasting on maintaining what didn't work becomes available for what does. The time you were spending on obligations that drained you becomes time you can spend on pursuits that energize you. The mental space occupied by dead commitments becomes space for living possibilities. This is why successful men embrace endings, not because they like giving up, but because they understand that a life well lived is filled with endings and that selective quitting is how you create room for selective winning. The life you want is probably on the other side of something you're afraid to end. The relationship that could fulfill you, the work that could energize you, the version of yourself that could thrive. They're all waiting in the space currently occupied by what you're maintaining out of habit, guilt, or fear. Winners do quit. They quit the wrong things so they can win at the right things. They end what doesn't serve them so they can succeed at what does. They understand that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is admit that something isn't working and choose to rebuild something different. The question isn't whether you're tough enough to stick with what you built. The question is whether you're wise enough to recognize when what you built isn't taking you where you want to go, and brave enough to clear the ground for something better. What in your life needs ending so something better can begin? What are you maintaining out of fear that's preventing you from pursuing what you actually want? What would you rebuild if you stopped treating every ending as a failure and started treating some endings as liberation? Let me know what resonates with you and what you'd add to this conversation. If you're a guy over 40 wanting to build a better second chapter, subscribe for more content like this.